podcast is for you to know why you believe, what you believe, and to be able to give a defense for it. Welcome to the Truth Wins podcast. This is episode 68, titled, Does God Cut Deals with Satan? It's a good title, don't you think?
Sounds kind of ominous.
That's right. That should hopefully hook them in. Like, what are they talking about today? So, they meaning my good friend Stu. Say hey, Stu.
Hey, Stu.
And this is Todd Sherman, your host. We want to talk about, you could probably, some of you already guess what we're talking about, but there's a story in the Bible where it seems like Satan and God kind of have a little wager on some guy's life and totally turn this guy's life upside down just to prove a point. So doesn't seem fair, seems weird. We want to tackle that. But before we do that, it is time to Stump Stew. Oh, no, it's always your response. Time to Stump Stew. So this is a section that we have integrated where we want to include some of your comments and questions. We've had a lot of great comments, and as is human nature, a lot of times the stuff that gets to me is always the saucy ones that are, a little combative, right? But they didn't get me any of these, but they've said that a lot of people said, thank you. This has helped me in my worldview and understand the Bible more. And so thank you for thanking us. It's our privilege because it certainly is just us passing through this world pretty quickly. And the more we can tell people about Jesus, the better off the world will be because of him. And so we have the privilege to be able to pass along some things that we've learned through the years, not saying that we've got it all correct by any means, but we believe the Bible does. And so we want to wrestle with everything through the lens of Scripture, and we're glad that you join us. Today, I want to do a comment, though, from Mary, and this was in reference to our episode where we talked about why bad things happen to good people. And this one's a more serious one, and it's a hard one. She said, well, what is the truth that wins when millions of innocent children are killed by starvation in countries all over the world? So basically, our podcast called Truth Wins. So what's that truth that wins when all these innocent children are killed by starvation, Stu?
Well, there are all kinds of things that are going on besides starvation. I mean, there are a lot of bad things happening around the world, but there's really no way to differentiate what is bad and what is good unless you have a way to measure that. Also, sometimes we don't understand all the parts. We can't see the big picture, so we don't know how temporary suffering or permanent suffering in this life can be replaced in the next life. There's only true justice. I used to tell my students there can only be real justice if there's a life after this one. Mm-hmm. Because if this life is all there is, and Hitler slaughtered as many people as he wanted and then basically just ended his own life by pulling a trigger, then there's no justice in that. Mm-hmm. But there can only be justice if there's life past this. And we believe that there is life past this, and we want every one of you to be able to be where you will have a chance to be with God for all eternity.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a good segue into today's topic because doesn't seem fair what goes on in Job's life, but we get to see behind the scenes. And this is a rare glimpse in the Bible of behind the scenes in the spiritual realm, conversations that went on between God and the angels, and specifically Satan, before these events happened in Job's life. Now, with kids starving or being killed in wars and innocent people, we don't know what goes on behind those scenes because we don't have that. But to your point, Stu, this life is pretty short. So whether I live to 4 or 44 or 94, it's very short compared to eternity. Right. And so, my wife and I, we lost a child in when my wife was pregnant. And so that's sad and it hurts. It certainly would hurt even more emotionally if we knew that child and saw him or her for months or years to lose a child. But we're looking forward to be able to celebrate eternity with that child, right, girl or boy. And so we have that to look forward to. But it still doesn't take away the hurt and the sting and the question. So good question, Mary. You're not alone in that. It's just a lot of stuff doesn't seem fair. Hopefully today's episode will help a little bit with that too, because it does seem in Job that God is in a wager with Satan, and Job gets the brunt of it, unfortunately. And it's kind of, when we talk about God versus Satan, it's a strange thing to think about, because is it a battle between two equals? Is it a huge mismatch? Is God just stringing Satan along? He could have squashed him years back, but why is he still here? And then most importantly, why are we stuck in the middle? It's kind of like those Marvel movies where the supers are up there duking it out, but all of a sudden, these chunks of building and stuff are trapping all the ordinary people down, and we're getting killed because they're going at it up there. Maybe some people feel like that's what's going on with God and Satan, and we're just the collateral damage of all that.
There's like an African proverb that says, when the elephants fight, the grass gets trampled, so the smaller ones get hurt.
Huh.
It's kind of what's going on in the Ukraine and things like that.
Can I ask you a question, Stu?
Yeah.
Where do you store information like that African proverb? I mean, which cupboard do you put that in? Because that's amazing. You can just pull up like Proverbs and stuff like that for almost everything. I love it.
Somewhere.
I love it, man. You have drawers in your mind that most people don't have.
That's because I have no other spaces in there for how to fix things or how to do anything normal husbands do around the house.
Ah, okay.
So I don't have any of those drawers full, so I have plenty of space.
Okay, good.
So
yeah, you can't have all the
does
gifts.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Patty as well back in the day.
Yes.
She was the fixer-upper back in the day. I remember that.
Things.
Okay, well, you can't have all the gifts, but thank you for that African proverb. I have not heard that one before, and you're amazing. All right, Genesis 3. Let's go back to the beginning with Satan too, and talk about this eternal struggle. I shouldn't say eternal because it hasn't been eternal, but it's been a long time, this struggle between God and Satan. Okay, so God created the whole world in Genesis 1 and 2, and then 3 is the pinnacle of creation. It's humankind, Adam and Eve. They're in the garden. They get to be with God daily. They're in perfect relationship with God. Well, in verse 14. Early in chapter 3, we see the fall. And so they believe the serpent and what he says. So verse 14 is the curse against the serpent. Do you want to read that? Are you okay with reading that?
So the Lord God said to the serpent, because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and all wild animals. You will crawl on your belly, and you will eat dust all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring. I would put seed, because that's the word there, your seed and hers, and he will crush your head and you will strike his heel.
Okay. So there's a lot in that. There's a curse against Adam. There's a curse for Eve. But today's, for narrowing in on the curse on the serpent against Satan, there's some reminders throughout history that God has said, yep, what I told you back in Genesis 3, it's coming. Your comeuppance is right around the corner. What are those things? Because again, he says, I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and hers. Let's talk about seed first, and then he will crush your head, but you will strike his heel. What does he mean by seed?
And it's interesting enough, it's singular, in between your seed, the woman's seed. Mm-hmm. So that's an interesting statement there, because there aren't too many things we can think of in history where there's only a singular seed that comes from a woman. Mm-hmm. I can't think of any except for the one. Mm-hmm. that's who do you think it's going to be, Todd?
Rhymes with Barry. Is it Mary?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, it's Mary's seed.
Mary's seed.
It's Jesus.
But a seed comes from a male.
Yeah.
So this is the only time where he's saying the woman's seed, because the seed, not to do biology class 101, but I think most of you who are listening know how that whole thing happens, but you have to have the seed from the male for the egg from the woman. But in Jesus's case, it's the seed from that woman, and that's Jesus.
And God.
Okay. So God miraculously puts the seed in Mary and Jesus. So he's talking about Jesus will crush your head, but you will strike at his heel. Right. Now, how's Satan striking at Jesus' heel? Was it just in his 33 years on this planet, or are there other ways that he strikes at the Godhead's heel?
Well, it's like if you think of a snake, a snake can't reach every part of your body. A snake can only get to things that are exposed to it down,
Yep.
below your knee usually. But the woman is important because she's also the one who kind of fell for the trick of the snake.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one who, when Satan says, "Did God really say?" where he gets her to question what she really wants to do and who she really wants to believe. So it's that problem that's been there inherently for humans since the beginning. We want to make our own choices and we think we can be God.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we call this truth, because if you understand the truth, then you have hope. But if you're believing lies all your life, then you're doomed. And that's what they did. Unfortunately, they believed his lie.
Right.
But if you're a father, which you are, and I want to hurt you, what's the best way I can hurt you?
Well, let's see. You could stop my subscription to ESPN so I can't see any of the basketball games.
True.
Yeah.
That's too soon, though, because we're talking about watching March Madness coming up, and you decided to work instead of watch the first day of March Madness with me.
Day.
We have a tradition of that, though, Stu. Okay. I already have my chips and my beverages set aside for it, but no, never mind. Too soon. Okay, so you cancel subscription to ESPN.
Yeah.
What's another way? What's the main way you hurt a father?
You hurt someone that I love.
Yeah, you go after the kids, right?
Yeah.
So that's what Satan's been doing throughout history, is going after God's kids, and that's his sons and daughters, right? So his people, Israel specifically,
Yeah.
but all humans, he comes to steal, kill, and destroy because it hurts the Father.
Right.
And so he's been striking at God's heel and at Jesus' heel from day one, but this is a curse.